Happy Friday, everyone. JT here. So how are you doing? Welcome to the huddle.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. I thought you were asking me. Sorry.
It's all good, brother. It's all good, Seibo. That's kind of like the fun part about this. It's just organic. It's free flowing. It's kind of like your capoeira that I see you do sometime.
Yeah. Here, I'll let you finish your intro without interrupting. I'm so sorry about that. I thought you were asking me the question.
It's all good. It's all good. So welcome everyone to the huddle. Whether you are tuning in live with us right now on Facebook in our Thinking into Greatness community, whether you are checking out the replay, whether you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for being in this space with us. And what I really want to do first and foremost is to acknowledge you. I acknowledge you for choosing to invest your time and energy into being here with my good friend Seibo and I today, because you are the greatest investment that you can ever make. And when you choose to invest time and energy into yourself, you always get this amazing return on investment. And it's truly the best investment you can ever make. I am so enthused today, folks. In the huddle with me today is my good friend, Seibo Shen. How are you today, brother?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Happy Friday, Justin.
Yeah, happy Friday. So for those of you who have been in this community for a while, you might recognize Seibo because Seibo and I met, sometimes it's funny, sometimes tech, social media gets demonized, but Seibo and I actually met via social media in another community that we're in. And it was literally Seibo made this one post and you'll get to see, it doesn't really matter what the post, but then I just sent him a message. And through that, we connected, right? We saw these values at which we live our life by. And through that process, right, he invited me on to the Happy Asian Male podcast just over a year ago. We had a great conversation with him and his co-host, Brendan. And we've just stayed in contact. And what I really want you to do today is to go all in, right? I always talk about burning the boats. Like, go all in with one task right now. Okay, none of this multitasking stuff. So put down the distractions, listen to some of these golden nuggets that Seibo is going to share today, because I guarantee you will leave here with some great ideas, because I always leave here with great ideas. And the best part about this conversation here is I always love when we have conversations, Seibo, and I just got to let everyone know before this, because I love how we have different ideas in some regards, but it's all love. It's all about just having an open mind.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's get started, Seibo, so the community can get to know you a little bit. I'm gonna pivot a little bit here. I'm feeling a different question. I'm gonna let my intuition go and let spirit go.
Yes.
What is one thing that maybe people don't know about you that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. I've been very vulnerable online, so I feel like everyone knows all my skeletons in the closet. But if I were to share one thing that could be impactful or surprising that people don't know about me is, I would say that I went from being an atheist to an agnostic to a full-blown spiritual person over the last 24 months, and that's been the biggest change. I come from Silicon Valley, where knowledge and data is king. So talking about God, whether in the religious sense, whether in the spiritual sense, talking about intuition over logic, talking about feeling over data, these are all, I would say, I don't even want to say they're brand new things, because I like to say these things were always poking their head out, but I was always denying them, so I stopped denying them, and my life completely changed, by becoming more in line with what my spirit and soul wants. And as I said, it doesn't have to be mystical. Spirituality to me could just anything beyond yourself. It could be the community, it could be the planet, it could be the universe, it could be, the bearded white guy sitting on the clouds, or it could be Xenu from Scientology. I read a little bit about that the other day just to see what it was about. Some bizarre stuff, billionaire contracts, but yeah, just becoming more comfortable being a spiritual being, living a physical life has been the biggest change for me.
It's interesting. Like what I really hear from you is that it sounds like your mind got sort of cracked wide open, right? In the last 24 months. And you've been open to these new ideas. And I love how you shared that, hey, I'm a spiritual being kind of in this physical body and just living this human experience. Like, that's so good. Love it. So what I would love to know, brother, is what role has physical activity, sport played in your life? And yeah, what's a lesson you've learned from it?
Ooh, wow. Okay. So for those that know my story, they know that I was the smallest kid in literally all my classes up until maybe my junior or senior year in high school. Not only was I the shortest boy, I was shorter than all the girls, but I loved sports. And, um, you know, a lot of people told me, hey, go do like weight specific sports. You're so small. But, I wanted to play football, run track, play basketball. And so, I tried out for all those teams. And as you can imagine, when your engine has less horsepower than other people's engines, you have to become very resourceful. You have to become shrewd and cunning. You have to make the most out of all your resources. So, you know, I took all those things from sports and just transformed them or transferred them over to my regular life, whether it was my professional life, whether it was pursuing, other interests and hobbies. But it did teach me that even if you're not genetically gifted in whatever area, there are other ways to utilize your gifts. And for me, what I realized was it wasn't how athletic you are or how smart you are. It's how you use your athleticism, how you use your intelligence, how you apply them to the different areas to your life. And that is what showed me that there is no winning formula. There's only the winning formula for yourself. And we all have different biochemistry. We all have different experiences. And if you just try to emulate people, it's always good to have aspirations, but I could only do a C plus B minus impersonation of JT, but I could sure do an A plus impersonation of myself. So I'd rather be in the A plus area.
Oh, and that's such a great way. And giving the football analogy, I love that, like you got kicked off, you took it back to the house. I love that answer. And what I heard from you was two things. I heard you talk about gifts, right? And that idea of getting connected to your gifts so that you truly know yourself. So my question is, has this something that's always been a priority for you? Like, have you always kind of known yourself? Because it sounded like throughout there, you kind of were self-aware to realize, hey, here's what I bring to the table. How can I use these in the most effective and the most productive way? So have you always sort of been sort of self-aware?
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting question because there was definitely a lot of self-awareness. Now, what was fueling the self-awareness? It wasn't just like, human growth. The self-awareness was driven by wanting certain things in my life that I felt that, the alpha males or the jocks or whoever I thought was better than me had. It didn't necessarily have to be athletics. It didn't necessarily have to be, the smartest kid in class. It could be, the funny guy or the charming person or the emotionally sensitive person. So there was a lot of this awareness that like, hey, these certain traits seem to be attractive to other people. So I wanted and I desired them, but not necessarily for human development or personal development, but it was seeking to attain other things. And to attain these other things were to fill some sort of emptiness within me, something that needed to be filled. So what I realized was, yeah, I had self-awareness, but how was I using that self-awareness. And this kind of goes back to like, I believe everyone is intelligent, not in all the same areas, but like, how are you intelligent? Some people that are on the spectrum, they're the most brilliant engineers. I don't see them on the spectrum. I just see them as people with hyper focus and could sit down and just bang out code in a way that I can't. But in the same way, they can't see themselves being able to be, kind of like a Renaissance man in all these different areas, maybe not as deep as they are, but much wider. So, that's what I ended up finding out was, yeah, when you could find out what your gifts are, then you could really start living the life that you want to live, not the life that you think you want to live.
So, you bring up an interesting point there that, and I think back to, so first to sort of put you on the spot there, do you remember how we actually got connected? Do you remember?
I know it was through Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
I can remember who you've connected with me, like awesome people like Adam, but was it Gavin Masamiya that connected us?
So you made a post in the Asian Hustle Network about Ikige, that Japanese, the wheel.
Oh,
of,
yes,
like,
yes.
yeah. And then I remember just, for me, I always love, one of the things I've always loved to do is to find the greatness in others. Right. And I feel like that's always kind of something I've really wanted to do, because when I was growing up, I didn't always feel seen and heard. And no, not right or wrong. It's just, so I felt like I always wanted to let others know what they did well. And I remember just reaching out to you and saying, here we are in this group, Asian Hustle Network, and hustle has its own connotations, but here's a guy who's preaching a message about, I just felt purpose, fulfillment, right? Finding your why. And yeah, that's actually how we got connected. And then you sent me a message back, and that's how we became great friends, brother.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that is definitely one of the concepts, the Ikigai, that really helped me, and for those that don't know what it is, it's the Japanese word for your reason for being, and it's the intersection between what you love, what you're good at, what you could be paid for, and the last circle of the Venn diagram is what the world needs, and I feel like that last one is so important. What the world needs. It's not just about what you're good at, what you could be paid for, and what you like to do, because to me, that's individual flow. That is service to self. And there's nothing wrong with service to self, because you have to build up yourself in order to serve others. It's like, who would follow me if I didn't do all the things in my life? Who would follow you if you didn't have the experience that you had? So this is not to say service to self has no value, but there is a limit to the joy. There is a limit to the fulfillment that you could feel when you're only serving yourself. And for literally everyone that I've spoken to, or everyone that I've coached, when we've done their purpose statement, there's something about improving the aggregate of the world, and I'm like, wow, every one of my students or clients, they are wanting to serve others, but they want to take care of themselves first. But deep down, they want to serve others. So for me, yeah, like you, I've realized, my purpose is to help other people see their superpowers. So once they see themselves, they could go affect the world in broader ways. And, I've always known that was my purpose as well. I thought that the way I would manifest it in my 20s was through software, automating the jobs that people didn't want to do, the types of, jobs that are not like, there's, like, it's not like a thing where, a lot of the menial labor that people are doing, while it's super important, like, it's not glorified by society. But if we could help everyone discover their superpower and really lean into it, I believe that we could raise the aggregate consciousness of the planet. And when we raise the aggregate consciousness of the planet, we start seeing all the different things that we are doing that's actually helping or not helping. And for myself, what I realized was, growing up in Silicon Valley, I always loved technology, but I would always have older people always tell me to be cautious about technology. But I just thought, oh, the world's passing them by, they're nervous, blah, 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 that like they can't keep up. But what I've come to realize is not every progressive idea is a great idea. That's why we have progressives and conservatives, is because we have to conserve some really good ideas. And when I see things like social media that are used in many positive ways where we could connect with each other, but also used in a way where it makes us feel better, where we're constantly comparing ourselves to an ideal that is really not anyone's ideal. I could see that there needs to be a balance of all these ideologies. So I want to utilize the special power that you have, the special power that I have, which is helping people see reality for what it is. I always say, hey, if you want to change the world, wouldn't it help if you understood the way the world works, the way your mind interprets the world? And if you could do that, then you could start making tangible change in your lives.
Oh, you know what? So many great things to unpack there. So the first thing I really heard from you was this idea of purpose. And I always find it really interesting because purpose is a buzzword in the personal growth and self-development, right? Your why. And I'm curious, when you're working with your clients, when you're working with other, and folks, I'll just sort of preface this, like Seibo has been in Silicon Valley. Like he's been in three massive, like very alpha, very driven world of business. Like he's a high performer in that world, but he's also got this beautiful spiritual side of him, that ability to, I don't know, just see the world from this 30,000-foot view. So I just want to acknowledge you for that first and foremost, brother. But what I would really love to know is, how does even someone begin to find their why? Because everyone's like, everyone wants purpose, but I feel that not everyone, yeah, I'm just curious. I'd love to hear your take on purpose and how people find it.
Yeah. I have a few tips for helping people find their purpose. So I believe, first of all, people are looking for things that they are super passionate about. They have this idea in their mind when they find their purpose or their passion, like they'll just wake up every day with all this energy ready to do it. And I would say there is some truth to that, but in reality, for those that don't know, my favorite hobby is consuming cannabis, and I'm also a health nut. So what I did in a previous life was design the world's best vaporizer, the world's healthiest vaporizer. So there was literally nothing that I thought that could pull me from that purpose of designing these vaporizers. But ultimately, there was something else. And so what I tell people is, number one is, instead of thinking what gets you up most in the morning, is think about how much crap would you be willing to put up with in order to do this thing? Like, I couldn't get bank accounts. I couldn't get credit card processors. I couldn't, deposit money from my business, and I have a family too. And I'm like living like a drug dealer. It's like I'm running a legit family business, but like I don't have all these things, but yet I kept with it, so that's one of the things that I like to tell people. It's like, what are you willing to put up with? Like, really bad stuff over and over and still do it. That's one inkling to your purpose. Another is, well, I think of us as like machine learning, organic machine learning devices. It's like, you could only make um, certain levels of decisions with certain levels of data. So if you don't have a lot of experience in your life, how would you ever find your purpose? So for me, it's always, how can you embarrass yourself, Seibo? And why? It's like, when I embarrass myself, usually it's I'm doing something new that I'm not proficient at. And the more I do this, the more data my body has for understanding what I like or don't like, you know? And then the last one I really like to have people think about, a question that I like to have people think about is, if you had 1 year to live, how would you spend that year? And this isn't like doing bucket list stuff. It's not like skydiving or things of that nature, but like, how would you really spend your time? Who would you spend your time with? How would you want to impact the people's lives with that limited time? And utilize that framework to start thinking about like these different things that could start coming to you to find your purpose. And if purpose was a very easy thing to find, then we would all be purpose driven. But I find that purpose, it takes time, it takes experience. Like, you could hear my words today and you're like, yeah, whatever, Seibo, that sounds good. But as you get older and you have a certain life experience, something may happen to you where one of the things that I say all of a sudden becomes an epiphany, and it makes a lot of sense. And this is why I always say, you got to give your body more experiences. If you just keep doing the same thing, hoping you're just going to find your passion one day and wake up, that is not going to happen. You got to go breakdance. You got to go salsa. You got to go snowboarding. You got to do all this stupid stuff. Like, if you look at my Instagram, it's like, I'm always like trying like all these new things. And, it's at a minimum, I realize I don't want to do this. at a maximum, it's like I find a new passion in my life. So if I were to just distill it down into one thing, it's just go try a lot of different things and don't worry if you're good or bad. Just do the things that you think are going to be fun and see where that takes you.
You know, as you share that, what I really heard from you as you put that pretty little bow in at the end, it's about learning to embrace risk, right? To take risks, to embrace discomfort, to embrace the fact of, hey, shit, yeah, I may look silly here, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to learn something about myself in the process. So I'm curious, what from your experience is the thing that holds people back from this idea of embracing risk, right? Like embracing discomfort. Like, what is that thing that just keeps people feeling stuck?
Oh man, this is such a loaded question, but I'll do my best to give a cogent answer. I think thinking is the worst thing to happen to people. Why? Because they start thinking about what's the worst thing that could ever happen to me. So I like to I like to define it in this way, like there's mind or there's consciousness and there's thoughts. And I know people have tons of different definitions. So in the context of this conversation, let's just say consciousness is that you are aware that you are alive and you have a subjective experience. So consciousness is just like a mirror that is reflecting the experience back to you. And then we have something called thoughts. Thoughts are like the paintbrush that color in your experience. And so I believe, or not just me, but there's a whole school of psychology, the three principles, that says that, yeah, we don't experience life. We experience our thoughts of life. For example, like we don't love money. We think we love money, but we love the thought that money could bring us all these different things, right? So it's like, yeah, I love green paper in my hand. Not really. I love the thought of what this green paper can do. So for many people, when they think about taking risk, well, evolutionarily speaking, what keeps us alive is looking for all the risk. It's like the ones that survived weren't the people like making s'mores over the campfire. It was the people looking for like the wolves coming over the mountain, right? So that is baked into us. It's baked into us to just think like, yeah, if I do this, I may fall flat on my face. And I wouldn't say like I was like a very confident person, but what I did realize was every time I took a risk and I failed, the whatever I was thinking was going to be the bad outcome never happened. Like I have clients that have net worth of $600 million still thinking that they could mess up and be out on the streets. And I'm like, who has ever been out on the streets? Like, why do you think taking a risk always results in this, like being out on the streets? So I know if that was the way I thought about things, then I wouldn't take risks. And so if we go back to what we were talking about, consciousness and thoughts, is that once you realize you are the painter of the thoughts, then you have the ability to paint the outcome that you want. And that's not necessarily to say you're going to get that outcome. But what I like to say is always trying to make the best, like, if I want to do something, I do it. If I don't want to do it, I don't do it. Does this lead to me making the best decisions in my life? No, not really. But trying to make the best decisions in my life is what got me trapped in my head in the first place.
Oh, I appreciate just how open you are to giving and sharing these ideas. And what I heard from you was how easy it is, right? And how we've been so programmed and conditioned to think of the worst case scenario, right? And I would even say that that's almost just autopilot, right? Like it's sort of it's so interwoven to our DNA. And like you said, when we were cavemen, cavewomen, it was great because it allowed us to make, see over the horizon, make, to see if the wolves are coming. And when you were sharing that story about your clients, right? The $600 million net worth. I was having a conversation with one of my clients who's done very well, multiple businesses. And we were talking and I was saying, okay, what's going to happen here? And it was interesting how quickly it was all the decisions that he made in his life that he perceived didn't work out. And he started like, boom, 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 start firing them off. I said, whoa. I said, let me ask you a question. tell me about the times in your businesses, the times you made a decision that worked out. And he started going, and you could see his energy change. You could see his physiology is, again, the shoulders go back, the chin comes off the chest. And there was like this sense of calm and confidence. It just goes here. And it's interesting that, that's a practice like that idea of you must train your mind to be able to control the story that's going on in the subconscious. Because like you said, it all starts with, what are the thoughts, right? And whatever. Yeah. So good. I love, so good.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, you've been really successful in sort of the Silicon Valley world, and you've created all this success in the business world. What was the greatest lesson you learned, having these 3 successful companies, having 3 successful exits? Like what has been the lesson that you've really taken away from that?
Okay. So many lessons to take away from that, but I would say the biggest lesson that I took away was that, when I never went to business school, or I've never taken a business class. So when I started working in the business world, I was reading so many things about best practices, this, best practices, that. And they talk about when you're starting a new company, you got to do your due diligence, check out the industry, see how many players they are. Is it a growth industry? Like how much opportunity is there? You do your due diligence, and then you find the best opportunity to go after with the most potential for growth. Like that's what gets investors excited, if there's like a huge market cap, things of that nature. But what I found is if you use this outside in approach, this is why there's so many successful people that are unfulfilled. It's, well, you're hitting goals, but these goals weren't your goals to begin with. So when you think about the inside out approach, which is, yeah, let's start with what Seibo likes to do. Okay, what does Seibo like to do? Jiu-jitsu. He likes personal development. He likes being healthy. He likes cannabis. He loves all these different things. Okay, so I have like all the things that I like to do. And I like to call that, the inside out approach. And then I look at the outside in, which is, I don't like, this gets back to the ikigai, which is if you just do things that you love, but you can't make money off of it, then you're going to be in a bad situation. So I like to start off with the inside out approach of all the different things that I like, then look at the outside in, find some industries that have potential opportunity, and then look at the Venn diagram and see the overlap and then start doing things there. And that was the biggest lesson that I had to learn, which was making sure that even if I was doing things that I thought I liked, that like these goals would be ones that are aligned somewhat with my purpose. If they weren't aligned with my purpose, then I could hit all these goals and be like someone with a huge resume of achievements, but also be someone that was like spiritually empty, personally empty, like just not fulfilled in all these other areas. So for me, really understanding that, a lot of the goals that you grew up with as like a kid, as a teenager in college, like those weren't your goals. Those are like the aggregate of like your parents, your teachers, your friends, whatever was influencing you. So it might feel like it was your goal, but like, trust me, it takes a lot of unwinding. Like, so, running a cannabis company, a vaporizer company in the cannabis space, it did seem like, yeah, that's my goal. I'm running a company. Like, I love cannabis. I love being healthy. But guess what? The CEO part didn't jive with me. I didn't like raising money. I didn't like talking to reporters. I didn't like doing any of that. I just love designing vaporizers. So if I could have gotten a little bit clearer with myself, which was, no, I like designing hardware, I don't like doing all these other things, I probably could have saved myself a few years of just, starting one company feeling pretty good, and then starting a second company thinking it was going to make me feel twice as good, and then starting a third company before realizing, oh, wait, I don't like running companies. I like designing stuff, right? So, learn from me. Just start one company before you realize that you don't like running companies, not 3.
Yeah. I love that, right? And what came up to mind as you're doing it, I started thinking of like the Harlem Globetrotters, right? When they were big when we were kids, and you see the guy get one ball spinning, and then he gets a second one. But yeah, like you said, focus on one, get one. But I feel like that's where a lot of people get distracted, right? Is where they get this busy mind, is they have shiny object. It's like they, at the end of the day, they don't stick with anything long enough, right? It's like, I want it here, I want it now. Why is it not happening? Okay, it's not working. And then I move on to something else. Right. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've experienced that. And, I think this is why it's so important for people to have a strong purpose statement, a strong vision of what they want to do. So they don't get pulled in many directions, like for FOMO, And, one of the things that I've been talking about so much is if you think about your mind as like a freeway and your thoughts as cars, the conscious mind could process 40 bits of data per second. So just think about like when 40 cars get on the freeway, you have a traffic jam. And then think about when you have a traffic jam, like new thoughts can't get on, like you're kind of just stuck in this rumination. And they say humans have 70,000 thoughts per day. 90% of what you think about today, you thought about yesterday, and 70% of your thoughts are negative. So when you think about like, yeah, when you're thinking and you're thinking the same stuff as yesterday and it's all negative, like, of course you're not in a good mood. And if you're someone that's always involved in new shiny object syndrome and like jumping from, project to project, it's like it's exciting, but I just think about all the cars that end up in your mind because you're constantly ruminating about, did I do this, did I do that? So another thing that I really learned as an entrepreneur was, like I like to talk about effortless entrepreneurship, which is not that you don't have to put in effort. Like hard work is always required, but the mental anxiety, the depression, all of that ruminating is completely optional. And that's the thing. It's like I used to obsess about work 24/7. It was like I would come home and have dinner with my wife and my family, but then immediately start reading like cannabis periodicals and things of that nature. And what I realized was doing that for like 9 years, it just burnt me out. And what I really needed to do was not think about business, just trust that the 10 to 12 hours that I already did was enough. There wasn't any benefit to like this extra 3 to 4 hours at nighttime that I was doing, other than wearing out my engine, not letting everything get refreshed and replenished. And like, this is why I'm such a huge proponent of meditation, is when you meditate, and you try to clear your mind of all those thoughts and just focus on your breathing or your body. It's that the the traffic jam starts loosening up. Then your insightful cars, your epiphany cars, your creative cars can get on the freeway. And that is when the magic happens. Like business is not a science. Like if it was, everyone that has an MBA would be hyper successful, but 1 in 5 businesses succeeds. Why? It's not all the tactical stuff. It's not all the strategic stuff. It's how deep can the entrepreneur tap into his creativity and come up with these ideas that aren't coming from here, that are coming from the subconscious, the 20 million bit per second processor, the PS5 processor, not the Atari 2600.
Oh, as you were sharing, one word that really jumped out, which I love that you shared, was like effortless. And why I love that word is I've been reading the same 3 pages in The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. And the one of them is like this idea of the effortless way. And it's so interesting. And like when I reflect back and just objectively, not like, not going back and kicking the shit out of myself, but really looking, it was like, it's funny how, we sort of have these points where, same as you, I would be at work teaching and coaching, these 12-hour days. I would go home, have a quick dinner, not even physically be eating, but mentally, mentally, emotionally be thinking about what I have to do next. And I go in the office watching film, right? Prepping for there. And it was interesting. Like you get to a point to where you go, why am I doing this? And for me, it was like, I started to realize I was building someone else's dreams, right? Like I started to realize I'm spending all this time coaching other people's kids, which is, don't get me wrong, I love coaching, but it's coming at the cost of time and energy for my own kids. And then you kind of get a point to where you're like, is this what I want? And it's been interesting that since you and I first met, I have gotten to know my kids more in this year and a half where we took this adventure, made the pivot. And the best part is my kids I'm starting to see what makes them unique, what makes them, what brings them joy. So it's really been this interesting one, like when you really stop and you said, get still through the breath. It's amazing how life just slows down and the traffic jam goes.
Yeah, yeah. And the interesting thing, it's like the grinding, the hustling, like all of that works. It works too. It's not to say that doesn't work, but there is a different style. There is a different style. And, I'm living proof of it. Like, I came from the data space, so I sold a lot of data. One was a Twitter fire hose, and the other was being able to match like social media profiles or like an email address to everyone's social media profile so that companies could figure out what JT likes or what I like, based on, what we post about. But, it's interesting because, oh man, like all those different things I realized were just these weird little illusions in many ways of trying to create a narrative through data to make solving humans into an algorithm,
Yeah.
and in many ways, like it does work. But what I found is that we are all born with a certain amount of innate intelligence, a certain amount of trust. And the more we cultivate that, the better we could utilize that. And what I tell people is the logical, rational mind is very powerful. It's good. Like when I'm making finance decisions for my household, I'm using that mind. But when I'm thinking about fun and enjoying, I'm using my creative subconscious mind. I'm being there. So, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we have been so conditioned to just grinding, out working, out hustling. And like I said, that does produce a certain amount of performance. And yeah, when you look at the best people in the world, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Kobe Bryants of the world, the Lance Armstrongs of the world, or whoever are like singularly focused at these things, then you look at their autobiographies and you're like, man, these guys are like miserable the whole time. And it's okay. Like to me, those guys were willing to make the sacrifice in order for that. But I would say for the vast majority of us, we don't need to like live that way in order to achieve a life of abundance, a life of purpose, a life of fulfillment. Because at the end of the day, I would rather be a super happy average Joe than a miserable, goat of some sport. And that's what I found. I've met like so many high performers through my cannabis career. And when I start talking to them and I understand like how they're being driven for their high performance, in many ways, I start feeling some pity for them. It was like you had such a deficit in your life and you just needed all those attaboys and kudos from all these people to feel good for yourself, that you'd be willing to sacrifice so much of yourself. So when I see entrepreneurs now, like I'm always impressed by what they do, but there has not been like I specialize in coaching entrepreneurs, like there has not been an entrepreneur where after 7 or 8 questions of like, why are you an entrepreneur? Okay, why? Where they haven't said, oh, I didn't go to the prom, or, like I sucked at sports, or my parents didn't accept me. There's always like this really tragic, dark thing that is driving this hyper passion to accomplish, and that's why when they accomplish them, it doesn't feel good. And that's what I'm trying to change. That's what I see you trying to change, which is like, it's not just about performance. Performance is one thing, but guess what? When you feel good, you get performance, not the other way around. Not that you perform and you have all these accolades, you feel good. That's one method, but then that's a lot of suffering for just temporary happiness. This other methodology, this is what I incorporated in my coaching business. Like in 90 days, I was able to get my coaching business to a place where it replaced 3 of my salaries as a CEO. We don't even have to talk about that number, but each salary was 6 figures, so you could do the math. It's like, how did I do that? I didn't talk to any other coaches. I didn't buy any coaching programs. I didn't do any marketing. I just trusted that after 44 years of doing business, I knew how to present myself. I knew who to reach out to. And not every time it produced clients, but you know what? When it didn't, I learned some stuff and I had a great time. And here I am, 6 months into my coaching career. I've stepped down as CEO of my companies. My companies are doing even better now with the new CEO. Like it's beautiful. And I went from working 60 hours a week to 5 to 7 hours a week. trusting intuition, but also utilizing the logic that I had. So it's like I said, it wasn't throwing out my logic, but it was really cultivating my intuition and then utilizing my logic to help guide and navigate.
It's again so powerful, and that's why I love having these conversations with you, because we always go so deep, right? Like there's sometimes where I'll call you, I'm like, I just want to ask you something for 2 minutes, and then I look on the phone, we're like chatting for like 45 minutes, an hour. But I love how you talk about intuition, right? And intuition's interesting because, for some people maybe that aren't as open to the idea, it feels a little like, you know, out there, like pie in the sky idea. But I always liken it back to, it's like learning, it's your self-trust muscle. It's learning to really listen to yourself and trust yourself that like all the answers. Like I think of what I heard from you is all the answers that you seek are within inside of you. We just gotta, what you do, and what I would love that you do is you ask questions so that people start to bring those ideas out right to the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like my kind of specialty is taking like very data oriented, physicalist and materialist and introducing them to something greater than the five senses can experience, because I've experienced that through deep meditations where I'm tapping into other portals of information. And, the great news is quantum physics and quantum field theory is coming out with these rational explanations. So those that can't deal with the mystical explanation that religion typically gives or spirituality gives can now utilize math and algorithms to see how our conscious agents interact and grow and evolve. But for me, when it comes to intuition, like it's completely not a woo-woo thing. It's completely based in science because our conscious brain developed after our subconscious brain. And to me, the intuitive voice is the voice of the subconscious, the one that processes 20 million bits of data per second, the one that could recognize like a tiger and just be like, run. You don't need to think, just run. And so why it's so tough for people is, well, we've been trained to like think our way out of things, to always use our slow processor, and many of the people in this society that use our slow processor are rewarded financially or materially. So we see those things and we go, okay, hey, let's just think with our heads. We value this so much. But, like if you think about all the greatest paradigm shifting inventions, the iPhone, Tesla, the internet, like these weren't all concocted from the conscious brain. These were people that got into different states of consciousness, either through trance, meditation, exogenous molecules that tapped into this internet of ideas. So now for many people that aren't used to trusting their intuition or don't have confidence in their intuition, it's like, well, they have an inner critic that sounds very much like their intuition. Like sometimes my intuition will be like, Seibo, don't take that one wheel and jump it off that 8-foot ledge. And when I was younger and I would hear those voices, like I couldn't distinguish like, hey, am I being like a coward by not jumping, or is this my intuition telling me like you're about to kill yourself, right? So how did I figure this out? Well, it's what I said, go embarrass yourself. You have to listen to that voice enough to be able to delineate it from your inner critic. If you're just trying to like tap into your intuition today, you can't. However how old you are, that's how many years you haven't been using your intuition. You can't expect like after 44 years of living, like you could tap into it immediately. But it was like, okay, I have a feeling. Okay, I don't know if it's my inner critic or my intuition. Let's just go with it and see what happens. And as I started I started being able to delineate the voices, like they have similar tones, but what I realized was when it's my inner critic, it's like a back and forth. Like, should I do this? Okay, these are the pros, these are the cons. When it's the intuition, it's like, hey, just turn right at the street. And it's just like, okay, turn right. There's kind of like just this like 99%, like you just got to do this, but I would say for a lot of people, we've still trained ourselves to combat that like very powerful, clear message with just logic and reasoning. And then it kind of pulls us back into our heads again. And then we can't access the genius of the subconscious. And what I tell people now is I never cognitively solve my problems. When I have tough logical problems, I just go into deep meditation. I ask my brain, I say, hey, I can't solve this problem about, we can't send vaporizers through the postal service anymore. So I just go into deep meditation. I say, hey, subconscious, take care of this. I'm going to go play some video games. And hopefully by the time I'm done or when I'm walking the dog, I'll have some ideas come to me. And 9 times out of 10, not only do I have like a great idea, but it's like the best idea. So for me, it's repeatable. It's a process that I could do every single time. And when you could do that, that's science-based. That's not, you know, like faith-based.
I just love the examples you're sharing. And it was interesting that as you share it, I heard this like this thought energy come to me that talked about, how often, for people maybe that the intuition seems like a far stretch, right? Think about it this way. Have you ever been in that state in the morning where, you're late for work, you're late for an appointment and you can't find your keys, right? And you're like pulling it all out, you're just doing that and you go and you can't find them. But it's when you like stop trying and forcing it and you just take a breath. It's like, oh, they're right under your nose. Right. So it's just funny how I love how you really talk about just getting still and simply when you get still, what happens is that forebrain turns off, the creativity, the imagination come out, and then new ideas start coming. Right to you. For you, it's meditation, walking the dog, and all of a sudden just new ideas come to you and you solve your problems. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. I love this. It's so deep. I love where our conversations go. So we're coming up on the hour, but I have a couple things I want to ask you. What is one belief that you used to have that you no longer believe anymore?
This is a good one. I used to think that, all right, this might be a slightly longer answer, but I think this is a really good one to end with, because this is what I've been really ruminating on. Is when I think of growth mindset, I think of 3 types of growth mindset. First one is empowerment mindset, which is like, before I used to feel like a victim at work, at my job, whatever. Like, I can't get a new job, I can't start a new business, I can't start a new hobby, but you empower your client to be able to do all those things and basically change their lives. But the limit of empowerment mindset is that, well, if you have to change the world to change your inside state, you become a professional world changer, and you're always like just changing the world all the time. So what's the next level? Well, enlightenment mindset. And what's enlightenment mindset? It's kind of what we've been talking about is, hey, if you could change the framing of a situation, then nothing on the outside needs to change, and your internal experience could be completely different. It's like, you may have like hated your job because it wasn't the most fulfilling thing, but then you realize, oh wait, it pays me well and it's pretty easy. If you reframe it, it's like, it's not that bad. I could just go do whatever I want after work, right? But so this is to answer your question is, but I realize there's a limit to enlightenment mindset too, which is you're kind of have like a traffic controller of like, the good thoughts could come on the freeway, the bad thoughts don't come on the freeway. So the one thing that I've changed my mind on is that there are good thoughts or there are bad thoughts. I don't think there are good or bad thoughts. I just think that there are thoughts. And I have clients that challenge me every week on this, like thinking like they have, new outliers. Like, no, Seibo, like if you get fired, that is objectively bad. You can't tell me that you can just think that into a good thing. And I go, well, one time I got fired and got depressed and didn't work for 6 months. And the other time I got fired and I started 3 companies that went from, 4 figures to 9 figures in 2 years. So what is real is I got fired. What is an illusion is getting fired is good or getting fired is bad. Getting fired is just getting fired. So for me now, I call this infinite mindset, which is I don't even have a traffic controller in my mind saying this is good, this is bad. It's just like shit goes through my mind. Sometimes I feel good, great. Sometimes I feel bad, great too. It will pass. And all I need to do is focus on the things that I want to focus on, and I'll bring abundance into my life. And it's that simple.
I love that. Again, the infinite, the abundance. And what I heard from you again was that sort of law of polarity, right? That again, it's not good or bad, but can you find the greatness in the situation? Like when you talked about, oh, I lost my job. Hey, you know what? Now I've found a new opportunity. I'm going to start 3 more, but I'm going to start these other businesses. And it's interesting how that does take practice, right? Like finding the good, finding the greatness, as I share with my clients. you can do it. Like, right? You can, if you can think of what's not going well, then by law, you can find what is going well in your life.
Yeah. And like one of the things, like, then people are like, well, if thoughts are just thoughts, like, how do I navigate through life if they're just thoughts? And I go, okay, look, here's the difference. This is what I really like to teach is there's a difference between judgment and discernment. Discernment is like, hey, I got fired. Let's do something about this, but judgment is I got fired. I wasn't working hard. People see me as a lazy person. Oh, I'm just a lazy stoner. Okay, I'm just going to go smoke weed and not do anything. Right. So that's judgment, is like layering stories on top of the discernment. So yeah, through this process of thoughts are just thoughts, you could still discern. You could still discern, just don't judge. And if you discern, then you could figure out what you need to do without all the mental anguish that you put yourself through judgment.
Love that one. I love that you talk about judgment. Just that's been one thing for myself personally. I've been unpacking with my coach or mentor is that whole judgment piece. So it's great that you talk about that, right? Like judgment it's toxic, at least, but that's a whole conversation for another day. We'll have to bring you on and we can go even deeper. So I'm curious. The last thing I want to end off before we conclude is, this last year has been interesting, right? And every individual, every family's experience is a little bit different, right? And there are people that are struggling with their health. There are people that maybe they're going through a relationship breakdown, maybe their finances, they just have, COVID just, sort of prompted them to do that, or maybe they've even lost their job. What is one actionable thing that they can do today to just get the ball rolling, to create some positive momentum in their life, just so they can get back on their feet and just start, just feeling better?
Yeah, I have a lot of empathy for those that have suffered during COVID. Like it was a wake up call for myself to slow down. And by slowing down, that actually released me from being a CEO. But the word that you said, what could they do to create, what they want, or to create some momentum? And I think that is a word that I like to focus on, is like so many people focus on what do I want? What do I need in life? And I say, like, that's such a tough question to answer. So I always say, what do you want to create in this life? What do you want to create that could help you and help others? And I find that when you start thinking in the framework of what do I want to create versus what do I need or what do I want, there's just a different type of neural pathway or something that you tap into within your brain that's just like, okay, what I want or what I need seems like, I don't know, very service to self. What I want to create could still be service to self, but other people could experience it too. And that's actually kind of like the difference between passion and purpose to me. Passion is something that you're really interested in, that's for yourself. Purpose is when you could take your passion and have other people benefit from it, and that's what I feel like me and you are in our purpose right now. It's our passion that helps others.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love that idea of living a rich life is enriching the lives of others, right? Like that's what we're born to do. So I love that you ended off there. So I can't believe we're at an hour. I feel like we could have this conversation for the rest of the day, but I want to be respectful of your time and energy. So how can people get connected with you? Again, I know you're doing, you're transforming lives. You help people with mindset, you're a lifestyle coach. How can people get connected with you, Seibo?
Yeah, easiest way is Instagram at Seibo Knows, SEIB as in boy OKNOWS, or my website, www.seiboknows.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to DM or email me at seibo@seiboknows.com. And JT, thank you so much. I don't know why I called you Justin earlier. For some reason, I was like, is this full name Justin? I just said Justin, but thank you so much for having me on the huddle. This has been like a great conversation. Like I wasn't expecting to be all going as deep as we did, but I think that's what you bring out of me.
Yeah. That just intuition, right? Just speaking like thought energy, the questions just flow. So before we end, Seibo, I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you for the man you are, right? The amazing husband, the amazing dad, the amazing friend that you are. I truly want you to know there's very few people in my life that really prompt me to think, that really push me, And you are one of those people. So I really want to thank you for being the person you are. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, brother.
You're welcome. I mean, in many ways, I feel like meeting you was one of the synchronistic things that had to happen for me to become a coach today. So thank you very much, JT.
Yeah. Okay, folks. So I'll share all of Seibo's handles in the description there once we're done. But other than that, folks, first and foremost, right? Really take a moment just to take one piece of nuggets, right? Like Seibo dropped nugget after nugget after nugget. So take something that you heard today and apply it to your life. And that is how you can step into your greatness. I look forward to chat with you soon. Next week in the huddle. Have an amazing rest of your day. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care, JT. And I got to jump into a clubhouse room right now if you want to jump in.